Hey, Internet! It's the hamsters in the man suit. Doing a lot of videos lately because I'm trying to work on some writing projects. So it's making me think about writing shit. So, let's talk convenience. And let's start that talk by talking about getting injured. Convenient, right? Well, I'm going to preface this by saying I have different standards for movies than I do for books. I'm also going to follow that with, I'm in my office chair, and I've noticed I do this a lot while I'm in my office chair, and I kind of stare wistfully into the middle distance until I remember I'm on camera. So bear with me if I start kind of physically wandering off. I am still technically here. Though, by the time you've seen this, I probably won't be here. Anyway. Moving the fuck on. Let's talk about injury. This is going to go into a broader concept of writer convenience and plot contrivance, which I'm going to do a much bigger video on later. This should just be a short video because the injury thing is on my mind. Project I'm working on, I'm thinking about having a essentially modern day person end up basically being taken to another world. I know, so original. But part of that is I picture them encountering like a swordsman for the first time, like a raider, and just getting their shit chopped right the fuck off. They're just... And that made me think of Empire Strikes Back, the most, to me at least, recognizable, de-handing in a movie or book. And that's where I got to this topic, ultimately. So let's talk about convenience. How convenient was it at that moment for Luke Skywalker to get his hand cut off? Now, for Luke, not at all. But for the writer, for the narrative, they needed to get Darth Vader in a position where he could give Luke the whole speech and the whole spiel. And they weren't going to be able to do that while he had the lightsaber. Because he was going to keep fighting. And I guess they couldn't figure out how to have them talk and fight at the same time. Also, very dramatic moment, very great moment, and shows kind of just that one that Darth Vader's better than Luke Skywalker. There's a lot of little notes in that event that are useful for the greater story. But by the time Luke is needed again, robot hand. Looks just like his regular hand. Might as well have not got his hand cut off. Might as well have just got the lightsaber cut in half. Except then he wouldn't have been clutching the hand and all that, but, might as well take in a different injury that could be more readily recuperated from quickly. Now, in the context of a movie, do I expect them to go through the whole physical therapy process just so I can understand that the character is used to the hand again? No. It's implied, and a movie doesn't have the time and space necessary to really go into the, man, he got his hand cut off? What's it feel like? Does it, like a week later with the robot hand, does the robot hand still hurt at the wound? Does he get phantom pains with a robot hand there? Does the robot hand have full sensation in it? They imply it when the thing is poking it. Again, making it a completely meaningless act aside from in that scene where it was needed. But if lightsaber, is force, should he use lightsaber worse with that hand now? Should that explain why Anakin went from, and again, I know the order they're made in, and I know the order that they should be watched in, i.e. Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, nothing else. Force Awakens, sure, but nothing before Star Wars. But if you're going to count those, Anakin's all leapy and dancy and shit, so why the fuck isn't Darth? Well, bionics. It's best explanation. Why isn't Obi-Wan? Obi-Wan's fucking old. Obi-Wan's old and human. What do old humans do? They move slow. Yeah, of course there are exceptions to that, but for the most part, as we get older, we do not necessarily get more. And you go make me live in the desert for fucking 20 years, I am not going to get faster and more agile. I'm going to get hotter and bitchier. That's just me, though. So, you could argue that Darth Vader, the reason he doesn't do the hoppy and dancy and acrobatic shit, and he's just burr, 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 is cybernetics. He can't direct the force to the lightsaber as much because, again, a lot of people who are big fans of the expanded universe argue that only force users can use lightsabers, and therefore, if Luke gets his hand cut off, maybe he could get worse with a lightsaber. Well, he doesn't. Nothing actually changes from that point forward. It never gets brought up again. It never gets mentioned again. Same as his injury at the beginning with the Wampa, which was meant to cover up Mark Hamill's real-life car accident. Yeah, there's a scene of tension where they're in the back. He's at the back of the tank, and they imply that no one's sure if he's going to make it better, and he gets those facial scars, which he got in real life, but no one ever comments on his appearance, and it never gets brought up again. Is that an important point in the narrative? No. It's an important point at the moment, but is it important to the narrative? Not even a little bit. Now, Force Awakens has made it a bit more important with the discovery of Anakin Luke's lightsaber. Spoilers if you haven't seen it, but I'm not giving away a major plot detail. So, I lost the plot there. In a story, the video didn't phrase I did. In a story, you want to deal with more of you want it to have an effect. If it doesn't have an effect, you want to be able to justify why it doesn't have an effect because you have the time and therefore are expected to. Almost every story does some level of internal monologue for at least one of the characters. You know what they're thinking, you know what they're feeling. And if you have them injured and you don't spend any time on that injury, it really will look terrible. And so, for me, the idea came with the story that I'm working on to have a character lose a hand, and then I started wondering, do I want to spend fucking chapters of this character wandering around as the wound gets septic or he has to keep the wound scraped? What kind of background do I want to give him where he would know how to actually take care of a wound like that? Like, do I want to make him a nurse or something like that, or a paramedic, so he actually so he knows how to actually care for a wound, but now he has to use basically scraps and shit? And those are all absolutely valid processes, or I could literally just have his hand cut off and then put a torch to it, because people really aren't going to look that much into it, and how comfortable are they going to be following that story as he's having to abrade off the scab every couple days? That's really where I'm going with that, but like I said, it leads me to inconveniences, and the main one that I want to talk about right now is injury. We've all seen at least one piece of media where someone gets injured for the sole purpose that the writer can't figure out what the fuck else to do. I don't know how else to end this fight. This character's going to get injured. He's getting injured in a dumb way. Let's just fucking call it what it is. I recently watched Cinema Snob's review of Superman 4, and he makes an excellent point. Guy puts Perry White's head through a goddamn basic ceiling tile, and he's unconscious. Why the fuck did he do that? Well, writer didn't want to have to write Perry White's lines anymore. That's why he did that. He knew that, but that's why he did that. That's a convenience injury. When someone gets, takes 35 punches in the face and stomach, and then someone walks up behind them and slaps them on the back of the head and they're unconscious, that's a convenience injury. You all, read the Spider-Man goddamn daily comic, or go to joshreads.com, the comic curmudgeon, and he does it every once in a while, but he'll almost always point out when Spider-Man Spider-Sense fails, somehow, and he gets hit on the back of the head, just out, just unconscious, no matter what hit him, just fucking piece of styrofoam, done. And that's a writer's convenience. That's a writer can't figure out a way to move to the next point of the story or to resolve this particular event, so we're going to concoct an injury. And that leads into any kind of convenience. I'm going to try to focus a different video on every kind of major convenience, like the sudden know-it-all or the MacGuffin delivery. But right now, like I said, that's basically what I'm talking about. That if you're going to do an injury in a character, make sure you're aware of how you want to use it. And if you don't want to use it a lot, don't spend a lot of time talking about how horrible it is. That's a big one. The more horrible you make it sound in your writing, the more the reader will expect it to be awful. I know, shocking. So if you spend 3 paragraphs on the blade, cutting through the limb, breaking the bone, rending the flesh, the limb flying to the side, blood spattering everywhere, and the next thing he's just got a metal hand now, well, fuck you. Because there's no payoff then. It's just metal hand. Again, movie, I accepted a bit more. Comic books, kind of accepted a bit more, because comic books, I give them a lot of leeway, because that's what I grew up with. But when you're writing a story, kind of just keep it in check a little bit. But that should be it. Like I said, I'm going to kind of focus on different contrivances for every video. Alright, now, you know the fucking rest, man.